Hi guys, and welcome to the most valuable Premiere Pro video on the entire internet for people that want to learn how to do video editing in Adobe Premiere Pro. This looks like a long video, but in reality it isn't, because I have put all my knowledge about video editing in Premiere Pro for the last 7 years into this one video. And all of that to learn as fast as possible how to work with this software as a complete beginner, because it can be a little bit overwhelming. For people who are new here, I'm Joey, I'm a filmmaker from the Netherlands, and here on ShootThatVideo I share all my knowledge about filmmaking, about the shooting process, but also, like this video, about the editing process. I'm an official Premiere Pro certified associate, and I already helped hundreds of students with my online courses. But in this video I kept it as efficient as possible. This is for the people that don't want to spend hours learning a software, but just want to know how Premiere Pro works and then go exploring themselves. Some tips for watching this video before we open Premiere Pro itself. 1. In the description I put all the timestamps of all the subjects we're discussing. 2. I record this video on my very small 13-inch MacBook, so everything is good visible, but I can still recommend to watch this video full screen. 3. Please leave a like if you think this video is very helpful while watching it. That is not really a tip, but let's open up Premiere Pro and start this video. So hi guys, welcome. First I wanted to say that I'm working in Mac OS. There's not much difference between Mac OS and Windows. If you're working on a Windows machine, you have to press Control instead of Command. That's the only big difference. Then before we're starting Premiere Pro, I want to show you my file management. File management is very important inside of Premiere Pro, and that is because Premiere Pro always tries to connect with your files, so you can't work in Premiere Pro if Premiere Pro can't find your files on your computer. So you always have to store it in the same place. So that's why I have these 4 folders with the A roll. That's one video file. With the B roll, that are a couple of video files. I will explain a little bit more later in this video what A roll and B roll means. And then we have pictures and audio, of course. So we're firing up Adobe Premiere Pro. I'm working in Adobe Premiere Pro CC 2020, but you can follow this video with every Adobe Premiere Pro version, definitely the CC ones. So of course I'm not opening Premiere Pro for the first time now, so here I have my recent projects that I've blurred out right now, and here you can choose for a new project, or if you already had a project you can open one, but we will of course make a new one. You can leave these steps alone and you only have to focus on the name. So choose a nice name, and then you can go to location, browse, and then you have to choose a location to store your file. I want to do that in the same folder as my other files. So I make a new project called project file, and I will choose that folder to store my project file. So we hit OK. And then I think this is probably kind of what you see right now. So I will explain the workspace super short and efficient. The big thing you have to know is that there are different windows inside of this screen, and once you select a window like that, it has a blue line around it. But inside a window like that you also have different tabs like effect controls, audio clip mixer, so you can switch inside a window between different tabs. And you can set this up in exactly the way you want it, because you can drag these windows bigger and shorter if needed, but you can also pick up, for example, this media browser tab and then drag it to these tabs, or you can make a complete new window by dragging it on the side of a other window. You can also delete these windows by going to media browser and then hit the hamburger icon and then hit close panel, and now it's gone. If you accidentally delete something that you want back, or you want a new window, you can go to the top of your software and there is a tab window, and over there you have all the windows that are available inside of Premiere Pro. So I immediately want to start with deleting some of the windows that in 7 years I almost never used, so we will not use that in this video. And then there are only a few windows left that we're gonna work with. So for example, libraries, close panel, then we have info. You have all the info of a selected file. We don't need it. Effects we do need. Markers we don't need that in this video. Close panel. History also gone, because I will explain later how you can undo your last step Then we only have the project window and effects window over here. These windows over here are quite important. These are of course the tools. This is the timeline, and there you will build up your video, so definitely keep that. And also the program monitor is something you will need, because over there you can see what you're doing inside of the timeline. Here you can see the audio levels. We also want to keep that, but here are some windows again that we don't need. Source monitor important, the effects controls important, but the audio clip mixer is for really advanced audio editing. We don't need that. And the metadata is also something we don't need, because that is also very advanced data of your video files. So close panel. And then if we hit window again, you can see all the windows that I kept. Then over here you see the project window, and that is where all our files are stored. You also see here a text import media to start. So that is what we're going to do. For that we find our files on our computer. So in this case it's the A-roll, B-roll, pictures and audio. We will select all the files and we will just drag them onto the project window. Then it's importing the files, and after that you have the files with the folders inside of your project monitor. Then at this point we see very big icons, and if we're going to a folder we can also see a preview of the video file because of that icon. But because I'm working on a small computer, I cannot see a lot of video files at once, so instead of the icon view over here I will select the list view. And then you see only the name of the files, but you can see a lot more at once. This is how you go back, and then you can see the folders, and you can fold in and fold out the folders, so you can see all your files. Then we want to create a sequence, and the sequence is like a clean canvas inside of Premiere Pro. And in the timeline window over here, you see a text drop media here to create sequence. So that is the easiest way to make a sequence. So we pick a video file, for example, this one, and we drag it onto the timeline. And if we do that, then it creates a sequence. And now we're officially starting video editing in Premiere Pro. This is the icon of the made sequence, and it has the same name as the video file because that's how we made the sequence. But if you select it once and click on it again, you can change the name to Premiere Pro Basic Video, but you can of course call it whatever you want. If you don't want a sequence with the exact same settings, so the exact same frame rate and the exact same size as a video file you're working with, then you can create a new sequence by making a new item that's over here in the corner, and over here you can click new item, and if you hit new item you can go here to sequence, and then you have all kinds of different pre-made sequences with different settings. So this is a little bit more advanced, but for example under digital SLR you can hit 1080p, which is full HD, and then you can hit like 24, 25 or 30 frames per second. So that's another way to make a sequence, but I hit cancel because I already have a sequence. Then this is the timeline. The timeline exists of different layers on top of each other. These are all the video layers, so video layer 1, 2 and 3. And here are all the audio layers, audio layer 1, 2 and 3. So you can stack different video layers on top of each other, but also different audio layers on top of each other. I always explain video layers as a kind of glass plates on top of each other. So if you draw something on the glass plate, you see that first, but everything underneath you've been drawing is still visible. But if you fill the glass plate with something that is exactly the same size, then there's nothing peeking behind that layer, so you only see the top layer. This all will be more clear when we're working with other video files. So over here we see the video file we will work with, and this is an interview with Rhino from the YouTube channel Living with Pixels. So this is the A-roll and this is the main video file we're working with, and that is in this case the interview. So over here you see the video layer, and over here you see the audio layer. You can drag that bigger by just picking up this line and drag it smaller or bigger so you can see more clear these audio lines. But in this case I'm dragging it small again because we're not working with this audio, because I recorded external audio on a different microphone, and you see that microphone over here, that small black dot. So we have to stick that audio underneath the main video. That audio you can find in your project file underneath the folder audio. So we grab that audio file and drag it underneath the other file, because if you place it directly onto the other audio layer, then the other audio will disappear. And we don't want that, so we place it underneath each other. Then we have to sync the audio, and luckily Premiere Pro has a very nice function for that. So we select everything by making a selection, so clicking and dragging everything, then everything will be highlighted, so everything is selected. So then we hit the right mouse button, and then we go to synchronize. So if we hit synchronize and you hit OK, then it will automatically sync the two layers, and it's already done. It will sync the two layers right underneath each other. So, but now we see in the beginning that one file is a little bit longer than the other one. So we can trim that video down by just picking the beginning of this video and drag it to the audio, and it already sticks like a magnet to the same place you want to trim it down with. And that's because this is selected the snap in timeline. So we go to the end of this video by picking up this bar, drag it to the end, and then you see now the audio is longer. So we select the audio and we trim it by picking the end and drag it to where we want it. So now the audio and the video is perfectly synced, but at this point we hear both audios. We don't want that, so or we want to delete or we want to turn off the audio from the video, so the audio from the camera. I always recommend to turn it off instead of deleting, because you never know, maybe there is a point in a video that you need that audio. So if we select the audio, you see that the audio and the video are connected to each other, and you see that the new audio we dragged in is not connected and is alone. So you connect all these three layers together in a second, but first we want to separate these two by selecting it, hit the right mouse button and go to unlink. Now all these three are different layers and not connected to each other. So now we can select only this audio because we want to turn it off. We hit the right mouse button and we go to enable. We hit that, so we disable it. And now this will be a very dark color because it's not activated anymore, and you don't hear this audio at this point, but only this layer. Now we want to connect these three layers together, so we select it all again. We hit the right mouse button and then we hit, instead of unlink, there's now a button called link. So we hit link, and now this is one video file with the good audio. So at this point we're going to cut this video, and we do that with the tools over here. I'm not going into every tool, but the most important tools for now is this one, that is the selection tool, and this one, which is the razor tool. And with the razor tool you can make different cuts in your video, as you can see, and with the selection tool you can select a cut and then delete it by hitting backspace or delete on your keyboard. And now we made some steps that I want to undo, and we do that by going to edit and then hit undo, which is the shortcut Command Z on my keyboard. So I will not use the edit and undo click every time, but I will hit Command Z on my keyboard. And on Windows that is Control Z. So I will hit that key one time, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we undo everything we did. Then how to go around in your timeline. You have two important keys on your keyboard, and that is the plus and the min. And if you hit that, you can zoom in or zoom out on your keyboard. In that way you can maybe make the audio layer a little bit bigger. So at this point you can watch the waveform of the audio, and you can look at that while you make cuts on this video file. So how does that work? We zoom in on the timeline, we pick the eraser tool, which, as you can see, a shortcut for that is the C on your keyboard. So if I hit C on my keyboard, it will select the razor cut tool, and the selection tool is the V on your keyboard. So those keys are next to each other. So if you hit those keys on your keyboard, you can switch really easily between them. So because of the audio files, I can see that this is a part where Reno is talking. So we want to cut out everything before that part, because that's probably me asking the question. Of course, when you are working on a video, you listen to everything that's said in the video, but we don't have time for that now. So I will show you how to cut this video. So we hit the C on our keyboard and we set a cut at the beginning of where somebody is going to talk. Then when that person is done with his sentence, that's here, you can set another cut. And then we have this piece of video. So that means that this video, we can select it and delete it by hitting backspace or delete on your keyboard. and then we can drag this file to the beginning of the timeline. So now we can go to the rest of the video and we can search out a new piece of video that we wanted. So here does the video starts. So I hit the C on my keyboard, I make a cut, then I go to where the sentence ended. So that's over here. I go over there and make another cut. And then if I go back, then this is something I want to delete because it's not important and you only hear me asking the question. So we select it, we hit backspace, and we can drag this piece of video to the beginning of the timeline. We can also do that by zoom out, and then it's easier to drag it to the beginning. That's how to cut and trim a video inside of Premiere Pro. So now it's your turn to trim and cut your videos in your timeline. And then I will see you back when I'm also done with trimming this video. So now we're going to work with B-roll. And what is B-roll? B-roll is supplemental intercut footage. That's a very difficult name, but B-roll is overlapping footage of most of the time something that is discussed in the A-roll. So you hear Reno talking about walking outside, but you see, instead of him talking about it, you see him really walking outside. So the B-rolls are of course in the folder B-roll, and there you have all kinds of different files. At this point we're going to work with the source monitor over here. And how does the source monitor work? If we select a B-roll by double clicking on it, then it will open the video file inside of the source monitor. And the beautiful thing about the source monitor is that we can already trim the video over here. So we only have to drag the piece of video file that we want in the final video onto the timeline instead of dragging the whole video on the timeline. Because if we do that, for example, this video, we drag it onto the timeline, then first we have to drag it on top of all these layers, and then we have to cut the video again here in the timeline. And we also have the audio that we don't want because we have the audio of the interview, so we don't want the audio of this video file. So let's select it, let's delete it, and we work with the source monitor. The source monitor over here, you can already see the video by picking up this playhead and dragging it around. And then we can look of a good beginning of the video we wanted. Over here we have nice lens flare because of the sun. So over here I want to start the video. So we set the playhead over here, and then we can select this little icon, which stands for mark in. And as you can see, the shortcut for that is the I on your keyboard. But we can also click it, and then you see there is now a highlighted part that begins at the point where my playhead is. So now we can play the video by just clicking this play button. And then when we want to stop, or when we want to the end of the video, that's somewhere over here, I think, because then it zooms in again. So somewhere over here. So I left the playhead over here, and then I want to click the other icon, which is mark out, and the shortcut for that is the O on your keyboard. But we hit mark out, and then we only selected this part of the video. So now if we want to drag the audio and the video together onto the timeline, we can just grab somewhere in this video and we can drag that to the timeline, as you can see. But then we again have the audio, and in the source monitor there are fantastic buttons over here, which is drag audio only and drag video only. So I hit Command Z to undo this step, and then I will drag just only the video by not picking this whole video to drag, but picking one of these icons to drag. So I will drag only the video, and then you see now I only have a video file. And I only have that one piece of video from this whole video onto the timeline. And over here, of course, if you zoom in with the plus on your keyboard, you can also make this longer or shorter, and you can edit everything of the original video also in the timeline, but you don't have to deal with a super long video, so you can trim it more precise maybe, but it's super easy to already do that inside of the source monitor. So at this point you can watch through the B-rolls, and you can pick a video file that you like to see or like to work with, and then cut it over here with the in point, then the end point, and then drag only the video or both if you want that onto the timeline, and you can fill up this space on top of the A roll. I already told you how video layers work, but as you can see, if I zoom in now, then here we see the normal interview, and at that point we see the B-roll, the overlapping footage. And that is because the B-roll has the exact same size as the video we created, which is again the same size as the sequence we made, and that is why we don't see the original interview anymore while it's still under this piece of video. But for example, if you have a video file that's smaller than the original video file we're working with, then you see the video peeking behind, because now the glass plate is not completely filled, so you see what's underneath it. To fix that, we go to the next step, and that is the effect controls. So if we're selecting a video file, in this case this file, we can go to effect controls, and in effect controls you have all kinds of options to adjust this video file or the video file you selected. Over here we have the position and we have the scale, and as you can see the scale is now on 56. And if the scale is on 100, then it's on the original size. But when you were not watching, I made it 56 to show you what happens when you have a smaller size video. So I will put this back on 100, and you can do that in two different ways. You can click the number and then type in 100 and hit enter. And as you can see, now it's full size again. But you can also drag the number to the left or to the right. So if I drag it to the right, I can make it bigger or smaller, and I can see what the numbers do on my screen on the program monitor. So I can play with it and see what is the best size. In this case, of course, 100. But when I make it smaller, I can look at the position and I can drag around this video file inside our canvas. So the first number is for the horizontal position and the second number is for the vertical position. So if I drag this number around, I can drag it to the left or to the right. And if I drag this number around, I can drag it up or down. And this button, the reset parameters, is to reset it to its original size. So I can also hit that, and then it's also 100 again. And it works the same with rotation, so you can rotate your file, and it works the same with opacity, so you can make it see-through or not. And with that said, you can now place some B-rolls if you have extra overlapping footage on top of your main footage if you want to. But I will now talk about the next subject, and that is video transitions. So a video transition is of course how you go from one piece of video to another piece of video. And you can find some basic video transitions inside of Premiere Pro underneath the tab Effects. So do you remember Effects? Over here we have the tab Effects. I hated to work with the effects over here, so I will pick up this tab and drag it onto these windows. So now my effects are here, which I like more. Over here you can also see what kind of effects there are. Audio effects, audio transitions, video effects, and video transition. And of course I want to talk about now video transitions. Over here you have all kinds of video transitions and how do you apply those transitions. So for example, I will pick a normal but kind of nice transitions, which is underneath a slide, and then it is push. How do you apply it is go to the timeline and go to video pieces of video you want to connect to each other. So in this case I want to connect this one with this one. So then it's super simple, because then you pick up the effect and you drag it between these two videos. And if you do that, there is a little rectangle at this point, it's called push. So if we now play it, then the videos are pushing each other. So that is the transition. You can make these transitions longer or faster by going to this push rectangle and pick that to drag it longer or shorter, because that rectangle is the length of the transition. So if I want to do it really short, then it's a really fast push. So about the video transitions, you have to figure out for yourself what works in your video or what does not work. There are a lot of video transitions that looks really cheap, so don't go too extreme with the transitions. That's the only thing I want to say about video transition. So think about what kind of transitions you want to use. Video transitions that I can recommend was, for example, push. but also all the dissolve transitions are kind of clean. And then first we have to delete the push transition, and we can do that by clicking on the pushed rectangle, so the transition itself, and then just hit delete or backspace. For example, a dip to black. If you apply that, then it's literally going from the video to black and then back to the video. And those transitions you can use kind of safe without making it look super cheap. But let's be honest, most of the time you don't even need video transitions. We also have video effects over here, but we will talk about that later. First, I'm going to show you how to add text to your video. Because if we're going to the beginning, then you see here Reno talking about himself, like introducing himself. So at this point we want to have a text with his name inside of the screen. So for that there is a beautiful tool called the type tool. So if we select that, it's super easy, and we can just click onto the screen and we can type something. For example, his name and maybe his title. So web designer. If this program monitor is a little bit too small for you, you can drag this down, and then if you have it on fit, it adjusts the size itself. Also over here you can adjust the quality, but not the quality of your final video, but just the resolution and the quality of watching your video in your timeline. I always have it on 1/4 on my MacBook, because if you put it on full, your computer has kind of a hard job to process everything. But 1/4 of a quality is fine for just watching the video on your timeline, and again, it does not influence the quality of your final video. When we typed this text onto the program monitor, there was a new piece of video appearing in the timeline, which is a good thing because that is the piece of text we will work with. So when we're going back to the selection tool and then selecting the piece of text onto your timeline, you can go to effect controls, and over here, like we already talked about the position and the scale, but there appeared now a new thing, and that's called text. And if we fold that out by hitting that arrow icon, you can see here all the kinds of things you can do with the text, which is really nice. So if we go back to the type tool and we select everything we made, then we can, for example, change the font. So we can see here all kinds of different fonts that you have installed on your computer. So maybe a handwritten font, which I will definitely not choose right now. So I will go for a kind of basic but nice font. It's called Open Sans. It's a Google font. You can search it. But you can also select only one part of the text and make it smaller. So this is how you make your text smaller. So we can make that slider and make it maybe 55. And then it's kind of the same as in your basic text editor. So you can align it to the left, to the middle, or to the right. And over here you can add some nice effects. So a stroke, which is not really nice, but also maybe a shadow, which I use more often, but not this kind of a hard shadow. I'll make the opacity way smaller and I'll make the softness way bigger. So now it has a nice subtle shadow. Nice subtle shadow, nice subtle shadow. That's a tongue twister. So over here you can change your text, like I said, but you can also go back to the motion again, and then you can change here the position. So you can maybe put it in a corner, like where normal text or introduction text is. And then when we select the selection tool again, we can go to this piece of text and make it longer by just dragging it longer, like you trimmed your videos, or we can make it shorter, whatever you want. So do you remember that we talked about the size of a video? So it's not super common that you have different videos with different sizes, but when it is common is when you want to add pictures. So over here I added a folder called pictures, and then we can see we have 4 different kinds of screenshots. So if we're dragging a screenshot onto the timeline, so this photo has a completely different size, but like I told you, we can select it, we can go to effect controls, and we can play with the scale. So maybe we can fill it up the whole screen, but then there's nothing left of the photo. We can also play with the position, so we can maybe put it on the right side or something, but let's reset it because we can also put a white background underneath it. So how we do that is we go to the project monitor and we make a new item. So we hit new item and then we go to color matte, and you hit OK because this is the right size. So we hit OK. So in this case I want a normal white color, so we hit OK and we can give it a name. So color matte white, for example. We click OK. So then you created something new called color matte white, and if you drag this onto your timeline, then you see that it's just a screen filled with the color that you chose. So if we put this underneath the photo that we just picked, then you can see that you can still use this photo with the size you wanted, but not on top of the A-roll. So now you can select the screenshot and you can maybe make it a little bit smaller so the size is exactly how you want it. And now it is a nice photo on a nice background because of color matte. So what I will talk about now is a little bit more advanced, but I still wanted to show you this in this video, and that is animation with keyframes. And animation with keyframes is that you set a position of something with one keyframe and then a second keyframe with a different position, and then it moves automatically between the first keyframe and the second keyframe. So for example, if I select this screenshot, then we go to effect controls, but we have to drag this a little bit bigger and then drag this a little bit smaller. And this is the same as over here, as you can see, but over here you can set keyframes. So how do you do that? That is with this little toggle animation stopwatch. So we first go to the beginning of this photo and we set a position. For example, I want it a little bit more to the left. So I drag this number a little bit more to the left, and then I will hit the stopwatch and it makes a keyframe. And the keyframe is this thing. So we drag that to the beginning, and then at the end of this photo we will set another keyframe with another position. But because the stopwatch is selected now, if we drag this number to the right, so we drag also the photo to the right, it automatically makes a new keyframe. So now we have two different positions, one over here and one over here, and then it automatically moves from one keyframe to another. So that will look something like this. That was super short how you make keyframe animation in Premiere Pro. Like I said, it's a little bit more advanced and you can look up way more about that. So I will zoom out in the timeline and we want to add some music. So we're going to work with background music. So over here with audio, I have a song over here. And with audio layers, it's kind of the same as with video layers, except that if you put audio layers underneath each other, that you hear all the audio layers and not only one. So if we pick the Bleecker Street Blues and we put it underneath the audio we already have, we can make that smaller again because we're done with trimming that. So now we have the audio underneath our interview, but if we now play it, then the music is way too loud and we want to use it as background music. So how we fix that is by selecting it and again go to effect controls, and over here you have a tab called level. And as you can see, the stopwatch is already selected, so for now we toggle that off, and then we can change the level to, for example, for background music, I know it's -35. But you can also again drag this to find out what you like. It can maybe a little bit louder, so -30. And now it's kind of a nice, subtle background music. Why was that stopwatch selected? That's because sometimes, or most of the time, when you work with audio, you want to change the levels during the video. So that works the same as the animation with the photos, and that is that you set one keyframe. So maybe you want to start a little bit louder. So you want to start at -20. And then you hit the stopwatch, and then after a couple of seconds you want it to be a little bit lower, so you want to turn it again at -30. So now the level changes from -20 to -30, and that is why that stopwatch is also with the audio layer. Then I almost explained you everything to make your first video, but I also want to show you how to do a small color correction. So maybe the color of your video is a little bit too flat or not good enough. We can fix that by going to effects, and then we will work with the video effects. Underneath the video effects you have all kinds of video effects, and you can do lots of things. You can warp the screen, you can mirror the screen, you can make it black and white, and you can do all kinds of things. When you have more experience of editing video, you will get to know more of these effects, and that's not something that I will explain in this video. But what I want to explain in this video is the effect for color grading. And one big effect to do color correction is called Lumetri Color. And that's underneath video effects, color correction, and then Lumetri Color. And as you can see, you can also type the video effect you want inside of this bar, and then it will also pop up. So if we drag this Lumetri Color onto one piece of video, for example, and that is how you apply video effects. You just pick the effect and drop it on a piece of video. And now only this piece of video, I will zoom in on the timeline, only this piece of video has the effect right now. And that is also why this FX icon is now purple instead of the normal gray. So we select the file, we go to effect controls, and then over here you have Lumetri Color, and you have all kinds of these effects. But for now I will talk about the basic correction. And if we open that up, you have like a normal photo editing app on your phone. You have here also the exposure, which you can drag more or less to make it darker or more bright. You have the contrast to make it more flat or more contrasty, and the highlights, shadows, whites, blacks. To understand how all of this works, you just have to play with it. And then after basic corrections, you also have the curves and the color wheels, and that is like more advanced color correction. So if you start video editing and you just think, this video is a little bit too flat, which I think of this video, then you can just open the basic corrections and maybe put some more contrast on it. So don't over exaggerate with these color correction settings, and get to know them step by step. So then to apply it on more pieces of video, you can easily copy this effect. So if we select it, then we hit the right mouse button and we hit copy, then we copied this effect, and then we can select all the other clips. So these ones, or you click on one and you hold shift to select multiple ones. So these 4 pieces and this piece, and then you can hit Command V on your keyboard, which is how to paste things. So with Command C you were able to copy it, but we did right mouse button and then copy, but with Command V you paste it. So now this more contrasty effect is on all these pieces of video. We did a lot of video editing in this video. But what if you think your video is done? Then you have to export this project to one video file. So how we will do that is we will select the timeline, just go to in the timeline. So there's a blue line around the timeline, and then go to File and go to Export and go to Media. So on this export screen you have again all kinds of different settings. In this video I'm not going into all those settings. I always choose the format H.264 because that is a MP4 file. So not a MOV file or other heavy complicated files, but just MP4. So if you click on format, you can select over here H.264, and that is a format you can play on almost all the devices, but you can also upload it almost everywhere. So that's a super nice format. Then for presets, you have all different kinds of quality presets. But if you hit match source high bitrate, then it picks the settings you chose when you made a sequence, which is already full HD and things like that. And the high bitrate stands for kind of the quality. So the higher the bitrate, also the bigger your file. So if you pick a medium bitrate, then this file will be just 42 megabytes. But if you pick a high bitrate, then this file will be 138 megabytes, but also better quality. So it's just what you like. Then don't change any settings here, but one thing you have to do is look at this screen, because over here you can change the source range, and the source range is what you want to export in your timeline. So if you pick the entire sequence, it will export the video from the first second of your timeline till the last clip you have in your timeline. So it will export everything that is in this moment on your timeline. But sometimes you have leftover footage at the end of your timeline which you don't want to export in your final video. What you have to do then is forget this for a second and hit cancel. And then on your timeline, you have to pick a in and a out point. And that is the same as we did in the source monitor. Do you remember? With this icon and this icon. And the shortcut for this was a I and a O. And that is the same on the timeline. So if we go with our playhead to the beginning, because we want to render out from the beginning, we hit I, and then the whole timeline is now highlighted. But if we not want to render out till the end, so everything, then we also have to make an out point. So if we're going to the end of this video and then we hit the O, then the out point is, if we zoom in, over here, so at the end of what we made. And if we now go to File and Export, then the source range is on sequence in/out. And now it only exports the piece of video that you selected from the in till the out point. So then there are these two buttons, the Q and the export button. And the Q button looks really nice. So you think, hey, I have to click that. But if you click the Q button, then a different software opens that you got together with Premiere Pro. That's called the Adobe Media Encoder, and then it picks the project and it exports it in a different software, which is kind of nice because then you can still work inside of Premiere Pro or do other things, but I recommend to just export it inside of Premiere Pro, because then your computer don't have to fire up another software, and I recommend to just leave your computer alone when it's exporting, because it's a really hard job for your computer. So if we don't want to fire up that different software, then we can just hit export. And if we do that, then it start exporting the video inside of Premiere. So this is the audio previews that goes really fast. And now it's exporting the video, and the estimated time remaining is 1 minute because it's a really short video. It's only 1 minute. But the more effects and layers you have, the longer, of course, the export time. And then when this thing is done, you made your first video. So with that, I also teach you almost everything I think you need to know to work on your first video. So I hope you also did that. I hope you also learned new things, and I also hope you go on a exploring tour on YouTube now to learn all kinds of other things. So this was a super long video and a lot of time went into this video. So if you liked it, please give it also that like, and maybe if you're new here, subscribe to my channel to learn all kinds of different things about video editing, but also about shooting video. And that is something I really hope you're going to do, so we can all learn from each other more to create cool videos. I can talk a lot more, but I will not do that. I really hope you learned new things today, and I really hope to see you another time here on Shoot That Video. Bye.